2nd of December. As you can see, not much snow on the ground. 29 days from now, I'm going to be participating in the Tuscobia Winter Ultra. This was from a previous, I think it was from my 80-mile sled pull finish. But I'm not here to talk to you about training today. I'm here to show you a little bit about equipment. But before you turn off the video, before you go, oh, here he goes again, there's a point to this. So bear with me a little bit, and I'm going to try to be quick. First of all, when you're on foot, I'm pulling a sled, and as you can see, this is a pretty light plastic sled. And there's a long rope behind it with an opening, and you put a carabiner in here and you attach it to the harness. And on the back of the harness there will be another loop back here where the carabiner will hook into that and pull behind it. And on the harness, plenty of reflective material. Why? Because the end of the month and into early December, it's dark. And we're on a snowmobile trail. And if there is a fair amount of snow, you want to be visible because snowmobiles go fast. I don't. So anyway, basic equipment. A lightweight sled, a harness to hook it onto. Okay, what goes in the sled? Well, when I did this before, the nighttime temperatures were right around -20, 160 miles. There's not a lot of convenient places along the trail, actually. There's a lot of desolation out there. It's not like there's little towns to stop at all the time. It's not like the event organizers are having checkpoints or hot chocolate along the way. So you've got to be prepared. And one of the things that's critical is some sort of sleep system. And you have to carry it with you. Well, one of the things that's easy, that's light, that's sometimes using a remote has its own set of challenges. As I was tossing this up in the air and I hit the shutoff for the remote. But anyway, the base of the sleep system within this bag is a very lightweight closed foam pad, and it's reflective on both sides. Yeah, you may say, well, the snow's soft, why don't you just lay in that? Well, if you're warm, if there's snow, you need a barrier so you're not melting snow underneath you. So there's some way, because the snow is going to absorb any kind of heat you may have, or et cetera and et cetera. So a closed foam pad, light, small, underneath is the first base layer of a sleep system. Step back a ways, it takes up most of the sled. Well, actually it doesn't. I've just had it out here lofting. I can get this in a compression sack, down-filled, compress it down, and it'll fit into something about this size. This is my bivvy. This is kind of my personal little tent. It's not a tent, but you can put the bag in it, lay all this on top of that pad, and away you go. But all of this stuff and more has to fit in the sled. I'm going to show you a little more in just a few seconds. I was able to pretty quickly make some repairs and adjustments to my belt, that harness that I use to pull the sled. So on the back, I've got all the attachments here and the rubber ring that the carabiner goes in. And I have two different carabiners here. One is a lot, if you want to say, looks sturdier, heavier, and a smaller carabiner. But the purpose is that they get hooked around the sled, the loop of the rope of the sled, and then with the rope in here, you snap it over here, and you could hear that, and it went pretty quickly. This lighter one can just pretty easily snap and go on there, and when it's cold out and you've got mittens on, the dexterity isn't there, and so you want things to happen pretty quickly. This other one looks sturdier, but it's significantly heavier, and it doesn't snap on like the other. It can get on there, and it's secure on there, but if you're using a mitten and you're trying to get this thing back off, it takes a lot more effort, a lot more time than that. And then a simple pull up and it's off. And you may say, what's the big deal? Well, over 160 miles, you may have to take this on and off a few times. And when you're cold and when you're tired, and if your fingers are cold and you're using mittens, it makes a big deal. So that part of it's ready to go again. A few final things about this adventure that I'm going on. I showed you the sleep system, I've showed you the harness and the sled, and quickly went over that. But if you're going on something of this nature, this many miles, this many hours, and not a lot of places to stop necessarily, besides having a good sleep system, you need to eat and drink. Okay, no big deal, right? Yeah, it is a big deal. You got to find what works for you, but also what works in the conditions. You don't want to be carrying more weight than you need to, so you need things that are calorie dense. You need things that aren't full of moisture, because when it's below freezing, anything that's got moisture, liquid in it, is going to become as solid as a rock, and you just can't eat it. So I'm going to show you a few things that I've found work for me over the years. One of them, nuts. Nuts are good things because they don't freeze. They're pretty dry. You can even, kind of dried fruit will do the same thing as well, but nuts have a little more protein. Another thing that doesn't freeze, maple syrup. It'll get thick, but it's calorie dense. You can eat it. I mean, it's sweet, but it's not too bad, and it goes down quickly. And it's light. One of my favorites, oh yeah, peanut butter M&Ms. This little bag has 1,500 calories in it. Storehouse of energy. Plus, if they do get hard or frozen, you just suck on them for a while and they taste pretty good. Protein, yeah, I know I like Spam, but Spam has too much moisture in it. Some kind of jerky. This happens to be turkey jerky, but doesn't matter. You find what works. Another little powerhouse, peanut butter packets. You can get 100 calories, well, this has 200 calories in it. You can keep it inside under jackets, places to stay warm. You squeeze it a little bit, eat it, boom, 200 calories of protein. And the other thing, kind of a sweet thing that I like, are what's called stroopwafels. They're just kind of thin, wafery. They got caramel in them. And yeah, they can get a little hard, but there again, you can break them into quarters, whatever, put them in your mouth and let them warm up, or you put them in a pocket or something, and boom, easy. You can grab all of this stuff pretty easily with gloves on. What do you do about liquids? Thermoses. Insulated thermoses, you fill them with hot fluids, and you may, depending again on the temperature, even these will freeze up after a while. So you can get little koozies, if you want to call them that, and the Hydro Flask, which is the brand I've got here, fits into this. You zip it shut, you stick it in a cooler, sit it in the sled, and this stuff should stay pretty liquidy for quite a while. So a few of the many options you have in front of you as you prepare. Now, stay with me a little bit. You're going to hear a bit about how I think this fits into life and our spiritual lives. Here we are at the sanctuary at Hillsborough United Parish. Quite a nice Christmas tree behind me. It fits the sanctuary, but if I would take that home to where I live, there's no way it would fit. As a child, I remember a very important part of Christmas was having an artificial tree. And the artificial tree the branches came in long tubes, kind of like paper towel tubes, only longer, or Christmas wrapping tools. And as you pulled out the branches, they were aluminum. It was bright silver, and it wasn't full and nice like this particular tree, but I remember it. It was important. It fit the particular time and place of artificial trees. So, do we find what fits, or are we rigid in saying it has to be this way? And you know what this is. It's the nativity scene. And it appears that everybody has showed up. The shepherds, the magi, everybody at one time. Is that the way it happened? I don't know. How many of you have nativity sets that are this large? Maybe you have smaller ones. Maybe they're particular figurines. Everything from Charlie Brown to Star Wars to everything else. Which one's right? Was everybody there at one time? We have to find what fits. It's a story. And the story is more than some sort of, let's all put the facts together and that's the way it's got to be. The story informs. And in this particular case, what the story is supposed to be, main point, is God shows up in human existence in a diverse setting with diverse people. We have to find what fits. So when I completed the 80 miles on Tuscobia in 2016, I was using somebody else's sled and somebody else's harness because I didn't have that equipment. And I went back again in 2017 to attempt the 160 mile. I had my own sled, but it was a used sled, pretty heavy fiberglass. I had my own harness, but I didn't even make it 80 miles before the cold and tiredness and any number of factors came in and made me stop and call it good for that event. So you got to find what fits. You got to find what works for you. Just because somebody says that here's the way to do it doesn't mean it works for you, because there's different perspectives: age, fitness, place, life experiences. They all factor in. And when we talk about faith and spirituality, we're not talking about facts. We're not talking about you have to hold this belief or this understanding. It's about being flexible and adaptable to help you on life's journey. And I've changed in that aspect as well. I'm not just talking about ultra events in the winter, but about perspectives of who God is and what God does in daily existence. The rigidity of doctrine, the rigidity of denominationalism, the rigidity at times of social, this is the way it's got to be, has changed dramatically. And that's what works for me. I'm not prescribing this for you, but what I do think is important is that we question, we think, we experiment, we find what fits. Because we're all on a journey. And the journey isn't the same for all of us, nor is it the same every time we set out on it. Faith is larger, deeper, more important, in my estimation, than a bunch of facts and doctrines that we just kind of take for granted. We don't eat the same foods that we did decades ago. We have different equipment and appliances and cars, and we live in different homes than we used to. We adapt. And I believe that's part of the gift that we've been given by God is adaptability. So if we're adaptable, why shouldn't faith be adaptable as well? So a few things to think about as we go on our journeys of life. Thank you for watching.